Thinking of moving to Delaware, more specifically Wilmington, Delaware? Well, you picked the right video because in this video, I'm going to go over some of the pros and cons of living in Wilmington, Delaware, and some of them may not be as obvious as you think. What I can promise you is after watching this video, you'll know a lot more about Wilmington, Delaware, and be able to decide if it's the right city for you or not. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Brandon Windom, and I help people buy and sell homes right here in Delaware. And on this channel, I talk about what it's like living here in the first state, Delaware. And if you're thinking about potentially buying or selling here in Delaware, I love to have a conversation to see if it made sense for us to work together. So I'll put my info on screen and again in the description below. Now, before we jump into pros and cons, I just want to give you some quick overall facts about Wilmington, Delaware. So Wilmington is actually located in Newcastle County, which is the most northern part of Delaware. Wilmington is actually our biggest city with a population of about 70,000 people. It's home to many of our financial centers as well as the Port of Wilmington. One thing I do want to mention is that Wilmington's kind of broken up into two parts. The one part you have the inner city where you're going to see the more densely populated and the row homes and more of that urban landscape. But you also have the suburbs of Wilmington where you're going to see the little towns and cities with a lot more open spaces and places like the Namora Estate and things like that. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're talking about Wilmington. So the first pro here is got to be the great location of Wilmington, and honestly it's probably one of its biggest drawing points. Depending on where you are in Wilmington, you could get to Maryland, Pennsylvania, or New Jersey in just under 30 minutes. So it's great if you potentially commute for work to another state, or if you have some family in neighboring states, you can get to them in just under 30 minutes to an hour. And another bonus or advantage that you have here in Wilmington as well, if you're a commuter or maybe you're visiting family, or if you're someone who likes to travel, is that the Amtrak station is actually located in Wilmington. Now that Amtrak station offers routes everywhere, but more specifically, it has a high-speed route called the Acela that actually services Boston, New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., and it offers, a ton of departures every single day for pretty reasonable prices. So that's definitely super convenient if, you're someone who likes to travel or if you have to commute every day. So the next pro is jobs, jobs, jobs. So Wilmington kind of being the financial heartbeat or center of Delaware, and Wilmington being our biggest city, there's a ton of opportunities for employment everywhere in all of the major sectors. If you have a career in business or finance, over 60% of all Fortune 500 companies actually are incorporated here in Delaware and called Delaware home, such as JP Morgan Chase, Capital One, Bank of America, and a bunch of other Fortune 500 companies as well. Or perhaps if you're in chemical or engineering, Wilmington is home to a bunch of different chemical engineering plants as well, such as obviously DuPont, Hercules, and AstraZeneca, just to name a few. There's also the Port of Wilmington here, which is one of the busiest ports on the eastern seaboard. And as you can imagine, they offer a ton of different employment opportunities ranging from just general construction all the way to administration. And don't worry if you're in healthcare, there's plenty of jobs for you here as well. Wilmington is home to quite a few major hospital systems such as St. Francis Hospital, you have Christiana Care Wilmington Hospital, you also have the Wilmington VA, as well as Nemours AI DuPont Children's Hospital. Another pro is the rapid growth and development that Wilmington is seeing overall in general. Delaware is putting a ton of money into the development and revitalization of Wilmington, and because of that, it kind of makes it a hotspot for everything. And I mean, they've already completely transformed the old riverfront with new shopping, new housing, bunch of walking trails, and just revitalizing open spaces. And from the looks of it, Delaware shows no signs of stopping down with revitalizing and developing the rest of Wilmington as well. And with that momentum, you're just seeing a ton of new businesses just opening up all the time, such as new trendy restaurants, little cafes, a whole bunch of different, activities to do, as well as the nightlife. And because of all the new development and just people wanting to visit Wilmington, it just seems like there's always something going on there, which tends to give it a bit more of that faster pace and kind of resembling a bigger city feel and pace without all the drawbacks and headaches that go with actually living in a bigger city, if that makes any sense. I got a bonus here for you, and that's sports. So while we don't have any professional sports teams here in Delaware, Wilmington is actually home to both our semi-pro teams. So first you have our minor league baseball team, which is the Wilmington Blue Rocks, and they actually play at Farley Stadium here in Wilmington. And it's always a ton of fun for the family. They always do a bunch of giveaways and have a lot of things for the kids. And the best part, all kids under 3 are actually free as long as you just keep them in your lap while you're, watching the game. So we also have an NBA G League team, the Delaware Blue Coats, and they play at the Chase Fieldhouse. And it's not uncommon to see big college names there, as well as some NBA players if they're coming off of injury, or maybe they're just declining in their play and they, put them down in the G League to maybe get back or develop a little bit more. It's always a great time. They play really hard and it's a great experience. So now let's hop into the cons. So the first one is traffic. Come on guys, if you know me, you know I was gonna talk about traffic, but overall it's not as bad as, one of the major, some of those major cities such as New York or California, but compared to the rest of Delaware, it kind of sucks. But it's to be expected. It's our most populated city. And just to be honest, when is city driving anywhere any fun? It's always kind of a pain with all the one-way streets, the stop signs, all the traffic lights, pedestrian crosswalks. It's just not great. And don't even get me started on the main highway that runs through Wilmington. It's I-95. I swear it seems like there's always an accident whenever, around that rush time traffic. I don't know if people are deliberately crashing into each other because they don't want to go to work, or I have no idea. But just keep that in mind during those, high congestion times. It can get pretty backed up. So the next con is property taxes. Now, I know you're saying, Brandon, I thought the reason why people were moving to Delaware was because of the low property taxes. And while that is true, property taxes in Delaware here are pretty low. Here in Wilmington, they can get up there. Now, it's not anything compared to like New York or New Jersey, but compared to the rest of the Delaware, it can get relatively high. So on average, the average tax bill for people living in Delaware is about $1,500. But even on some of the smaller, townhomes inside the city, I've seen those property taxes get up to almost $2,000 a year. And when you're talking about, those bigger properties out in the suburbs of Wilmington that have, more land, more square footage and everything, I've seen some of those tax bills get as high as up to $5,000 a year. So the third con here is that it's crowded. With Wilmington being our most populated city, it kind of goes hand in hand that there's going to be some crowding here. So because of that, you get all the fun stuff that comes with being in a bigger, crowded city. Now, it's not at an extreme level like if you were living in like inner city New York or New Jersey or California or anything like that. But you're still going to have some of those same problems, but on a smaller scale. And because of that, you already know we have a housing shortage. So majority of the homes in Wilmington are usually going to be a lot older, and the ones that actually do have decent sized lots or are a little bit newer usually come with a premium. Also, it's not uncommon to wait for public services or healthcare just because you're serving a much larger population than other parts here in Delaware. So if you're looking for a bunch of land with no one around you, Wilmington may not be the perfect place for you. Now, quick disclaimer here before you drag me in the comments and say, well, oh, Brandon, you didn't even talk about crime or anything like that because I read in Wilmington there's blah, 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 blah. Well, because of the Fair Housing Act, I really can't get into, crime in certain area and crime statistics. But what I do recommend is that you should definitely do your own research and potentially go out to the areas you're thinking about buying in, take a nice little 30-minute drive around and talk to some of the locals and see how they feel so you can get a better overall kind of perspective of whatever area you're talking about, not just Wilmington. That's anywhere looking to buy. Maybe Wilmington isn't the right city for you, but if you're still interested in maybe learning about some of the other cities in Delaware, I actually made another video discussing Dover, Delaware right here.